I could have been twice as rich if I hadn't made one dumb mistake 50 years ago. That's not a complaint. By the way, I don't do complaints. It's a reminder, you see. People today are obsessed with brilliance. They think getting rich is about being the smartest guy in the room, solving complex equations, or predicting the future. That is absolute nonsense. Getting rich isn't about brilliance. It's about avoiding stupidity. And let me tell you, stupidity is everywhere. It usually comes dressed as urgency. People want to get rich fast. That's the oldest trap in the world, if you look around. Most financial ruin has the exact same root cause: impatience. It's gambling at the casino, it's playing the lottery, it's chasing hot stocks and leveraging yourself to the eyeballs. It is all the same disease. You want the result before you have earned it. I've lived long enough to see this pattern repeat itself until I'm sick of it. In the 1920s, people thought the stock market was a money machine. In the 1990s, people thought internet stocks could only go up. In 2008, people thought houses never fall in price. Different decades, same stupidity. So here is the brutal truth I'm going to tell you today. Getting rich slowly sounds boring, but boring works. If you keep your costs low, reinvest your earnings, and avoid catastrophe, wealth will creep up on you. Not because you're smart, but because you didn't blow yourself up. Now, ask yourself, why is this simple concept so hard for brilliant people to understand? Why do doctors and lawyers and engineers consistently ruin their financial lives? Because they can't sit still. I was born in 1924. That means I grew up in the wreckage of the Great Depression. You people today, you have no idea how brutal it was. Families lost everything. Businesses disappeared overnight. Banks failed. And when they failed, your savings went with them. There was no safety net, no government bailouts. I saw proud, capable men reduced to begging for work. I saw women stretching one chicken to feed a family of 6. I learned early that prosperity is fragile. One bad cycle can wipe it out. That experience shaped me. It made me cautious. It made me allergic to debt. It made me suspicious of good times lasting forever. Most people forget history. They think crashes and panics are rare anomalies. They aren't. They are part of the system. When you've lived through the Great Depression, you stop assuming the world owes you comfort. You plan for pain. You build reserves. You avoid dependence on rosy forecasts. Buffett and I always ran Berkshire with that mindset. Low debt, tons of cash. Businesses resilient enough to take a beating. It looks conservative until the storm comes. Then it looks like genius. In 2008, when everyone else was drowning, Berkshire was the one with dry powder. Why? Because we never forgot the lessons of the 1930s. We knew the tide would go out eventually, and we wanted to be the ones left standing. The Depression also taught me something else. Status games are stupid. When everyone is broke, nobody cares about your fancy car or your... What matters is whether you can feed your family and survive another day. Modern society encourages consumption. Buy the bigger house, drive the flashier car, borrow to keep up with your neighbors. That's fine until the cycle turns. Then all that leverage becomes a noose. So here's the question you need to answer. Are you investing for excitement, or are you investing for survival? Because if you can't endure hardship, you won't be around for prosperity. Let's use a little inversion here. Instead of talking about how to succeed, let's talk about how to guarantee misery. If you want to ruin your life, I have the perfect formula for you. Of all the ways to ruin your life, envy is the most useless. I've called it the dumbest sin, and I stand by that. Think about it rationally. Lust can give you a little fun. Gluttony can give you a good meal. Even anger can get you moving. But envy, It's the only sin that doesn't give you anything except misery. I grew up watching people poison themselves with envy. They'd look at the neighbor's new car or some cousin who got lucky in business, and they'd stew. Instead of working on their own situation, they obsessed over someone else's. That's not only irrational, it's corrosive. Buffett once said, "It is not greed that drives the world, it is envy." He's right, and envy is the engine of stupidity in markets. Why do people buy stocks they don't understand? Because their neighbor made money on it. Why do they pile into bubbles? Because they can't stand seeing someone else get rich while they're left behind. I saw this in the late 90s. Internet stocks turned ordinary people into millionaires on paper. Every cab driver had a stock tip. People felt like idiots if they weren't in the game. That is envy in disguise, and when the bubble burst, most of those envious speculators lost everything. The cure for envy is simple, but nobody likes it. Stop playing other people's games, play your own. I never cared if Buffett made more money than I did. Of course he did. He's Warren. But what difference does that make to me? I had enough. I lived well. I slept at night. That is real wealth. Some people say envy is natural, maybe. But so is dying young if you don't brush your teeth. The smart thing is to fight the natural stupidity in your brain. Ask yourself, are you trying to get rich, or are you trying to be richer than your brother-in-law? Because if you spend 30 years steadily compounding your wealth, it doesn't matter what the guy next door is doing. I told you earlier I made mistakes. Don't let the billionaire title fool you. One of my dumbest mistakes was clinging to Cigar Butt, investing for too long. That's when you buy some awful business just because it's cheap. Like picking up a soggy cigar from the sidewalk and hoping you can squeeze one last puff out of it. Ben Graham taught this method, and it worked in his day. But it is a miserable way to live. You are always stuck with lousy companies, lousy management, and lousy prospects. Buffett and I wasted years on cigar butts, textile mills, department stores, you name it. Every time the logic looked clever on paper, and every time reality beat us bloody. Take Berkshire Hathaway itself. Buffett bought it as a cigar butt, a cheap, dying textile company. We should have walked away. Instead, it turned into an albatross. It took decades to repurpose Berkshire into the compounding machine it became. That mistake alone cost us billions in opportunity. The lesson: it is far better to buy a great business at a fair price than a fair business at a great price. We went from scrounging in dumpsters to owning Coca-Cola and See's candies, businesses that printed money year after year, but we paid tuition. The price of that lesson was hundreds of millions of dollars in lost opportunity. Maybe billions. This brings me to the biggest problem I see in the world today: overconfidence. Everyone thinks they know more than they actually do. That's dangerous in life, but fatal in investing. People form opinions on stocks, politics, health, things they barely understand. And once they form an opinion, they defend it like a religion. The less they know, the louder they argue. I've spent my life trying to do the opposite. I want to know the limits of my knowledge. That boundary line is where safety begins. When I don't know, I say, I don't know. That phrase has probably saved me more money than any stock pick. I've never invested in complicated technology, not because I hate technology, but because I don't understand it as deeply as I understand consumer products or insurance. I don't need to pretend I know everything. I only need to know enough in my circle of competence. Now, here is the test for you. Can you say I was wrong? Because I've seen investors, lawyers, and politicians all destroyed by their inability to admit uncertainty. They would rather double down on stupidity than admit they don't know. Most people spend their lives as careerists. They climb ladders. They polish resumes. They chase titles. That works fine if you want a comfortable salary. But if you want real wealth, you need ownership. There is a world of difference between working in a business and owning one. Employees get paid for their time. Owners get paid for results, sometimes forever. When I was a young lawyer, I billed hours. That is the most soul-crushing way to earn a living. You only eat if you keep grinding. The treadmill never stops. One day I realized I didn't want to spend my whole life selling my time. Time is the one thing you can't compound. Money compounds, knowledge compounds, time just disappears. So I made the switch. I quit practicing law and focused on ownership, partnerships, equity businesses that could grow without me working myself to death. That decision changed everything. Buffett saw it the same way. That's why we've always preferred owning businesses outright, or at least owning big chunks of them. When you own, you don't wake up every morning wondering if the boss likes you. You wake up knowing that if the business performs, you win. See's Candy sells chocolates every Christmas. Coca-Cola sells sugar water every day. We don't have to do a thing. That is the beauty of ownership. The tragedy is that schools don't teach this. They train people to be employees, good little cogs. And most people never question it. But if you think like an owner, even when you're not one, you'll make different decisions. You'll cut costs like they're coming out of your pocket. You'll care about long-term durability instead of short-term optics. So ask yourself, are you climbing someone else's ladder, or are you building your own house? The world doesn't need more career, polishing PowerPoint slides. It needs people willing to take responsibility. If you want a simple formula for a good life, here it is. Avoid the 3Ds debt. Drama, dumb people. Sounds too simple, right? That's why it works. First, debt. Debt is poison for most people. It promises leverage. But what it really delivers is chains. I've watched plenty of smart men go broke because they couldn't resist leverage. Debt makes you a slave. Cash makes you free. Second, drama. I don't mean theater. I mean unnecessary chaos. Messy divorces, bitter lawsuits, feuds with business partners. I've avoided all that like the plague. Why? Because drama distracts you from compounding. It eats time, energy, and sanity. Third, dumb people. This may sound harsh, but stupidity is contagious. Hang around fools and you'll catch their bad habits. They'll tempt you into reckless behavior. Buffett and I were careful about who we dealt with. We preferred honest, competent, rational people. Life is too short to waste on the unreliable or the crooked. People romanticize my partnership with Warren. They imagine two geniuses in a smoke-filled room plotting brilliance. That's nonsense. We just had compatible temperaments. We avoided stupidity and we were patient. That's it, no magic. We had trust. I never worried Warren was scheming behind my back. We didn't fight over scraps. Most people think getting rich is about finding the secret formula, some trick, some magic stock. That is wrong. Getting rich is mostly about avoiding stupidity and letting compounding do the heavy lifting. If you save consistently, invest in productive assets, avoid debt, and don't blow yourself up, you'll end up rich. Not instantly, not dramatically. But inevitably, it's like watching paint dry, except the paint turns into money after 30 years. I didn't plan to become a billionaire. I simply stayed rational longer than most. I didn't quit when markets got ugly. I didn't get greedy when everyone else lost their minds. I just kept stacking bricks. So if you want to get rich, don't ask what's the fastest way. Ask what's the surest way. And then be boring enough to stick with it. That's the truth nobody wants to hear, but it's the only one that works. We've talked about saving, we've talked about patience, but we haven't talked about the real reason you're likely to fail. It's not the market, it's your own brain. The human mind is a lot like the human egg. When a sperm gets in, the egg shuts down so the next one can't get in. The human mind behaves the same way. Once a bad idea gets in, the mind shuts down and protects it. You stop listening, you stop learning. That is how smart people die poor. I've spent a lifetime cataloging what I call the psychology of human misjudgment. If you don't understand these biases, you are walking through a minefield blindfolded. Let's talk about incentive-caused bias. I always say, show me the incentive, and I will show you the outcome. It is the most powerful force in economics, and yet people ignore it. Years ago, at the heart of the Federal Express system, they had a problem. They couldn't get the packages shifted between planes fast enough at night. The whole system was clogging up. They tried moral persuasion, they tried supervision, nothing worked. Finally, they were paying the workers by the hour. What does that incentivize? Slowness. If you want to get paid more, you work slower. So they changed the system, they paid the workers by the shift. The moment they finished the job, they could go home. The problem vanished overnight. Now apply this to your investments. When you go to a broker, what is his incentive? Is it to make you rich? Number, it is to sell you something. He gets paid on commission. He gets paid when you trade, not when you sit. If you ask a barber if you need a haircut, the answer is always yes. If you ask a wealth manager if you need to rebalance your portfolio into some complex new fund, the answer is always yes. Don't be asinine. Understand the incentives. If you don't, you are just the patsy at the poker table. Then there is social proof. This is the instinct to do what everyone else is doing because you assume the crowd knows something you don't. In the animal kingdom, this keeps you alive. If all the gazelles are running left, you better run left too, or the lion eats you. But in the stock market, social proof is suicide. When everyone is running towards Bitcoin or some other rat poison, your instinct screams, join them. But that is exactly when you should be running the other way. I call Bitcoin rat poison squared. It is a trading vehicle for gamblers and criminals. It produces nothing. It delivers no service. It is just a token that you hope to sell to some greater fool for more than you paid. And yet, I see brilliant people buying it. Why? Because their neighbor made money on it. That is social proof overriding rationality. It is the Lollapalooza effect in action, where multiple biases converge to drive people totally insane. If you want to be wealthy, you must learn to stand alone. You must be comfortable looking like an idiot in the short term to be a genius in the long term. If you can't suppress the urge to follow the herd, you might as well hand your money to a chimpanzee. The chimp would probably do better because at least he doesn't have an ego now. Let's invert the problem. We know what bad looks like. What does good look like? I'll tell you my favorite business in the world. It's not a tech company. It's not a hedge fund. It's Costco. I love Costco. I am on the board, and I would argue it is one of the most perfect capitalist machines ever built. Why? Because they understand the power of scale economics shared. Most companies, when they get big, try to squeeze the customer. They raise prices to boost margins. They get greedy. Costco does the opposite. As they get bigger, they use their buying power to lower prices for the customer. They cap their margins. They purposely make less profit on each item than they could. This sounds crazy to a short-term thinker. Charlie, why don't they raise the price of the hot dog? They could make millions more. Because that hot dog is a promise. It is a bond of trust. By giving the value back to the customer, they create a moat so deep and so wide. Amazon worries about Costco. Walmart worries about Costco. That is a lollapalooza of good outcomes. High volume, low prices, extreme customer loyalty, and a membership fee that provides pure cash flow. Ask yourself this before you buy a stock. Does this business have a moat? Can a competitor come in and destroy it tomorrow? Look at Sears. Sears used to be the Costco of its day. They were the dominant retailer, but they got complacent. They stopped innovating. They let their stores rot while they played with financial engineering. And now they are gone. The market is ruthless. It destroys the lazy and the stupid. If you own a business that doesn't wake up every day terrified of losing its customers, you own a melting ice cube. I like businesses that can survive my death. I like businesses that can be run by idiots because sooner or later, one will. Coca-Cola is a great business. You could put a ham sandwich in charge of Coca-Cola and it would still make money. That's what you want. You want to sit on your ass and let the business do the work. Don't try to be a hero. Buy the unkillable business and go take a nap. We're coming to the end here, and I want to leave you with a final thought on life, not just money. You can be rich and still be miserable. I've known plenty of wealthy people who died alone and unloved. How did they do it? They were unreliable. If you want to guarantee misery, be unreliable. Make promises you don't keep. Show up late. Do sloppy work, lie about the little things. If you do that, I promise you, you will be walled off from everything good in life. No amount of money will save you, but if you are reliable, if you do what you say you will do, if you swallow your pride and admit your mistakes, if you treat other people's money with more care than your own, you will have a lollapalooza of a life. Warren and I have had a lot of fun, not because we were counting money, but because we spent our lives learning. We went to bed every night a little wiser than when we woke up. That's the secret. Be a learning machine. If you stop learning, the world will rush past you. Read all the time. I don't know any wise people who don't read. None. You are watching a YouTube video right now. That's fine. But go pick up a book. Go read Ben Graham. Go read history. The answers are all there. They've been written down for hundreds of years. You just have to be smart enough to look for them. I've given you the map. Avoid stupidity, invert the problem, understand your incentives, be patient. And for God's sake, don't buy Bitcoin. The rest is up to you.